Ken McElroy, who was also known as the town bully, was born June the 16th, 1934. He was the 15th of 16 children. His parents were Tony and Mabel McElroy. They were farmers who didn't have a lot of money and spent many years moving back and forth between Kansas and the Ozarks until they decided to permanently move to Skidmore, Missouri. Ken was 15 years old when he dropped out of school. He was only in the eighth grade. With so much free time on his hands, he quickly became known as a town criminal because he started stealing things like gasoline, alcohol, and even cattle from the local farmers. He was also known to be a womanizer with at least 17 children. At the age of 35, Ken had been married 4 times and had a history of taking advantage of young girls. His fourth wife, Trina, was only 15 years old, but some sources say she was actually 12 years old. Trina gave birth to 3 of Ken's children. It was said that he assaulted Trina many times, which is what led to her becoming pregnant at just 14 years old. Her parents were against them being together, but Ken threatened to burn the house down and unalive their family dog if they didn't agree to the relationship. So out of fear, the parents allowed Trina to move in with Ken. At the time, Ken lived with his third wife, Alice. He quickly divorced Alice to marry Trina in order to avoid being charged with statutory rape. After Trina gave birth to their first child, her and Alice ran away to Trina's parents' house. Ken found them and made them return back to his house. Ken was angry at Trina's parents for allowing her to move back home after she ran away, so he took advantage of Trina's parents being out of town. He burned the house down and unalived their dog just as he said he would. Ken also got a 15-year-old girl named Donna pregnant, who gave birth to a son. 4 out of 17 children that he fathered were put up for adoption. In 1973, Ken was indicted for arson and statutory rape. When Ken was arrested, Trina and her baby were placed in foster care with a family in Maryville, Missouri, which was about a 20-minute drive from Skidmore. Ken was later released from jail on bond and began sitting outside the foster home for hours, trying to intimidate the family. He tried making a deal with the foster parents, saying if they agreed to give Trina back to him, he would leave their biological child alone, stating that he knew where she went to school and which school bus she rode. Instead of them giving Trina back, they reported him to the police. On July the 27th, 1976, a farmer named Romaine Henry said Ken shot him twice because he confronted Ken about shooting weapons on his property. Ken was charged with the assault with the intent to end a life. While waiting on the court date, Ken would park outside of Romaine's house in an attempt to scare him into not testifying. That did not work. However, during the trial, 2 hunters took the stand to testify that Ken was with them on the day of the incident and that they were nowhere near Romaine's property. While under oath and being questioned by Ken's lawyer, Romaine was forced to admit that he was hiding his own criminal conviction that took place 30 years before his run-in with Ken. It was also reported that Ken stalked members of the jury and even burned down the judge's barn. The jury acquitted Ken of all charges. Over the years, Ken had been accused of many crimes, which led to him being indicted 21 times. But he was always able to avoid conviction because he intimidated his victims by following them around town or sitting outside of their homes. In 1981, one of Ken's children got into an argument with Evelyn Summy, a local grocery store clerk, because the child was trying to steal some candy. The store was owned by a 70-year-old man named Bo. Ken was upset about the situation, so he began stalking Bo and his family until one day he decided to go into the store to confront Bo, where he eventually shot him. Thankfully, Bo survived the attack. The charge came with a possible life sentence. However, Ken was convicted of second-degree assault and received a 2-year sentence. But of course, Ken was later released on bond while waiting for his court appeal. Immediately after Ken was released, he went to the local bar with a firearm, making threats against Bo. During his release, he began harassing Bo along with anyone else who supported him, which included a church minister. On July the 10th of 1981, the townspeople, along with Sheriff Dan Edis, were having a meeting at the town hall to put together a safety plan to legally protect themselves from Ken. While in the meeting, they received a message that Ken and Trina were at the local bar having drinks. The sheriff told the group not to go to the bar to confront Ken. He recommended that they consider forming a neighborhood watch group instead. The sheriff then got into his patrol car and drove away. Despite the sheriff's warning, the group decided to go to the bar anyway. They filled up the bar pretty quickly. Ken finished his drinks and bought a six-pack, then him and Trina went outside to sit in his truck. While Trina and Ken sat in his truck, someone began firing shots into the truck. After the shooting stopped, Trina jumped out of the truck screaming and covered in blood, but luckily for Trina, she wasn't hit. Ken was only hit twice, but passed away from his injuries. It was reported that the bullets collected on scene came from two different firearms. It was also reported that there were around 50 people standing outside when everything took place, but no one would say who actually ended Ken's life. The townspeople seemed very happy that Ken was gone. Although Trina was able to name who she believed committed the crime, since the town people wouldn't confirm her statement, no one was ever charged with Ken's death. According to Harry McLean, the author of No Deathbed Confession, Trina testified to law enforcement and three grand juries that she witnessed Del Clement commit the crime against Ken. Del Clement came from a prominent farming family. Del was known around town as the short and angry alcoholic man. Del and his brother were the owners of the bar where Ken lost his life. In 1988, shortly after Harry's book was released, he ran into Del. Del was very upset with him because he said he made some untrue statements about him, such as saying he was short. He said Del tried to take a punch at him, but a friend stepped in to stop the assault. Del was later diagnosed with cirrhosis of the liver that later led to his death. Even on his deathbed, Del never admitted to shooting Ken. Although Trina was also a victim of Ken's, after his death, she was unable to live a normal life due to the relationship that she had with the town's most hated man. In 1984, Trina filed a $5 million lawsuit against the town, including the sheriff, the mayor, and Del Clement. It's reported that the lawsuit was settled outside of court in the amount of $17,600 without the admission of guilt. The payout was way less than what Trina wanted. However, it was enough to allow her to move away from Skidmore. She eventually remarried and was able to live a low-profile lifestyle with her husband and her children until she passed away from cancer on her 55th birthday on January 24th, 2012.